Hey guys, and welcome to episode 207 of the OCDStories.com podcast. Now, this is a story-based episode where I chat with Amy Diener. Amy is American, but she lives in Asia right now, and I got her on to talk about her OCD story, her recovery journey, moving to Asia, what she's learned in recovery, medication, the OCD conference, her art, mental health in Asia generally, words of hope, and much, much more. I hope you find this story inspiring, and thank you to Amy for her time and for you guys for listening. And without further ado, here she is. On the podcast today, I have Amy Diener, who has kindly agreed to share her OCD story with us. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be on the show. So happy.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. And so it'd be great to hear your OCD story in as little or as much detail as you want to give.
Sure. Okay, so at this point, I'm 28 years old, and when I first started experiencing OCD, I was about 18. It was my senior year of high school. I had no idea what I was experiencing. I didn't know it was called OCD. I didn't, know the name of it. I didn't understand why I was experiencing it. But essentially it all started off because as an artist, I actually used to arrange and rearrange and arrange and rearrange all my paintings so that they wouldn't actually be touching each other because I didn't want to damage them. And that was kind of my first sort of like symptom of like what's going on with me. And so that was, my senior year of high school. And then I kind of just like brushed it off and ignored it. And well, that didn't very well work. And then pretty much I got into college and I was managing work and school, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And I didn't tell anybody. I sort of keep it a secret from friends, family, anyone close to me. Had no idea I was experiencing any kind of symptoms of OCD. And I just remember like in the very beginning of school, I just was looking up like, cause I had a feeling it might be OCD, but I wasn't sure. I'm like looking up on Google, like, what is OCD? Do I have OCD? What does it mean? And so that's kind of where it all sort of started. And then, about maybe when I was 20, like two and a half years from starting from like experiencing OCD, I had told my partner at the time that I had been going through a really tough time, and he had absolutely no idea. And he was like, you have to tell your mom. You have to tell your mom what's going on. And I was like, yeah, okay. And so I did. And my mom too was like, oh my God, are you okay? I had no idea. I thought you were just like so happy and everything. I was like, yeah, well, looks can be, and appearances can be deceiving. But yeah, so that's where it all started. And after that, my mom and I were like, okay, well, really need to get some help for this. So I saw a therapist, and unfortunately, she didn't actually focus on anything related to OCD. She was just more like a generalized anxiety sort of therapist. And I didn't really know what the treatment was for OCD. So I just like saw her maybe for 5 or 6 sessions, and it didn't really do anything. So she was like, you know what, I don't think I can help you, and recommended me to somebody else. So I got treatment for ERP, exposure response therapy, and I did that for maybe a good year or two. I was doing it back home, so I'd actually like sometimes come back and forth from college. So I went to SUNY New Paltz, which is quite like close to my house. And then it was just kind of getting like really expensive. So the problem was I couldn't put it on my insurance because my father, which will not listen to this podcast most likely, my father just like when I had told him that I was going through this kind of like mental health issue, OCD, he was like, that doesn't exist. Like that's not a thing. Like this isn't reality. Therapy doesn't work. Like was pretty much, I told him, I was like, well, I kind of want to like take a semester off from college and like just work this out. And he was like, if you do that, like you're going to be flipping burgers for the rest of your life. I'm serious. Like he had those like quote unquote comments. And I was like, well, I guess I have to keep going because he was paying for my school. What was I going to do? So behind his back, me and my mother, yeah, I know it's kind of crazy. Me and my mom behind his back decided, okay, well, I need the therapy. So me and her didn't put it on the insurance because we didn't want my dad to find out. So pretty much like me and her would split it half and half. And the sessions were quite expensive, like at least $100. So I didn't do it every week because it was too expensive. I did it every other week. And then it just became too much of a hassle going back and forth. So I found a different therapist by my college, and that worked out a lot better. And we actually had a better relationship and understanding. And yeah, so that's kind of like the backbone. I didn't talk too much about like my OCD symptoms. It's just, I can get more into that after.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so well, thank you for sharing that, and grateful your mum helped you through it, and you guys
Thank God.
found a way. Where's the next? So yeah, actually, before we get on to, I got a couple of questions around sort of the ERP, but yeah, if you didn't mind going into a bit of your symptoms, that would be good.
Yeah, no, of course. Okay, so it started off with the paintings, and then it went into like so many other things. It's kind of like morphed into different like forms of OCD. At some points, it's been like washing hands, like the more like stereotypical kind of OCD where you wash it, you rewash it, and you rewash it, or in the shower, you just are kind of like having a ritual. Other times, it has sort of like manifested into what was I going to say? Like almost like perfectionism, like just wanting things in a certain place, and like not just my paintings, just other things, not wanting to put things on top of each other. I think I have this fear of things getting damaged. And I also have a fear of, and still to this day, I have a little bit of it, but it's gone down so much, of forgetting. And I think it actually roots back into my family and my dad, because I remember when I was 14, I was going to a softball game, and I accidentally was in the car, and I accidentally forgot my softball mitt. And I lived in a condo at the time. And so my dad was driving me to the game, and we didn't even exit the condo yet. But I had told him sorry, I forgot my mitt. And I just remember he was yelling and screaming at me, just really upset about it. He was to the point, he was super irrational, to the point where he was like, you can't play softball anymore. I'm not driving you ever again. It was literally to that extent. And I'm just this young 14-year-old just accidentally forgot her softball mitt. And I think ever since then, those things kind of must have seeped in. And then all of a sudden it just sort of, when you're 18, I think that's when a lot of people experience OCD, start getting symptoms between 18 and 22, though it does happen when you're much younger. Somehow I was fine, pretty much all until my senior year of college, and then it just kind of set on. So yeah, I never and it kind of turned into making lists in my mind, and thinking about certain things and then rethinking about them, and thoughts became a big repetition in itself, repeating thoughts, and those were intrusive thoughts. They weren't necessarily thoughts about wanting to, kill someone or something like that, where you stereotypically think of an intrusive thought. It was just thoughts I didn't want to have. I didn't, I just wanted to breathe. I wanted to just be. And it was so hard. But once I started having therapy, a lot of it, just kind of went away, but it took a lot of hard work. a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And then with the ERP, what was that like for you going through that process?
Right. So I just remember we'd have that initial consultation, kind of assess like what it is, like the symptoms that I'm going through. And then from there, we put like a hierarchy scale of like what is causing or triggering the most amount of, anxiety, to all the way down to like what is just like, just slightly affecting you. And then I think what we did was we worked from like down all the way up. So we started with like our lowest fears all the way to our highest fears. And so I remember one of the things was, oh yeah, so like I had a fear of someone breaking into my mom's car. So I'd like lock the door, and then I would like relock the door and relock the door. And so I told my therapist about that, and so we like went out, and I just kept the door, like I didn't even lock it. Like it gave me quite an amount of anxiety. Just had to sit with that anxiety, and you can't go back out and check again, but yeah, that was one of the things, like just like a lot of things is like things you really like don't want to do, but kind of have to force yourself to do because it'll make you feel better afterwards. Like if you are washing your hands, like I don't know, like 10 minutes. Mine wasn't that long. It was like maybe 5 minutes at times. But if you're washing it for a very long time, it's like you limit it to like 20 seconds. That's all you get, kind of thing. Sort of doing the opposite of what your brain is telling you to do. But yeah, that's kind of how I think about the treatment in a way. I don't have any kind of like triggerings with knives, but I remember for the OCD conference that I recently went to, I remember we did something with knives where there were people like are scared of like harming themselves, so like knives were put in front of their hands, and like that kind of thing where you're just like facing your fear head on, like just targeting it.
Yeah, absolutely. And where you were doing, because you said you were doing it, was it every other week after the insurance? You stopped putting on the insurance. Were you doing lots of sort of homework exposures between those 2 weeks?
Yeah, I would do a lot of homework exposure. So I would like do this exposure sort of like on my own. And if I had any questions, like I would ask like my therapist, but then it got to a point where like I was trying to seek reassurance, which is a really bad habit when you have OCD. You don't want to seek assurance in people because it makes your OCD worse. So sometimes like my therapist would be like not answer the question because she knew like I was just trying to seek assurance from her. So she might just say like, I know you're trying to seek assurance, so I'm not going to answer this question for you. Because we did kind of have a lot of time apart. But yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. And so you've moved countries now.
Yes.
And what was, because it was quite a while ago, I believe, from looking at your website, what was that kind of transition like for your OCD?
So, surprisingly, it was okay. Like, I think it's just because I have certain fears, and those fears don't have anything to do with traveling that made it like easy to adjust. Because when you have OCD, you don't have usually, I mean, some people have many, many different types. I don't have so many types. And so I was able to kind of ease into it. But yeah, so a little bit over 6 years ago, I moved to Bangkok in Thailand, sort of took a leap of faith. I got a job as an art teacher in Bangkok, and I took it. I went. I had no idea what was going to happen. So it was quite uncertain, but that didn't bother me. And so I just went with it, and I just haven't really left since.
Cool. And what was there like a big or a epiphany or light bulb moment in your recovery journey where something just clicked?
Oh, that's hard. Um, I don't think so. I think things just kind of happened gradually and
Mm,
slowly in my recovery process. I don't think anything just was like boom like that. I Not for me at least.
mm,
It was definitely more of a gradual thing.
yeah.
Um, and I'm still like I definitely am not fully recovered, and I'm not sure anyone with OCD ever 100% recovers. And I know that's kind of a conversation, an ongoing
Mm,
conversation about it. But yeah, maybe I'm at like 80 or 90%
yeah.
kind of thing. Whereas in the beginning, like I was like at 20% or 10%.
Yeah.
Um, so
Cool.
I think what's important is the progress you make in the development, not necessarily trying to get to perfection or not perfection, or just like a 100% recover, just like notice, like just having a growth mindset.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Cool. And was there any like sticking points in your journey to recovery? Like anything that got in your way, and how did you overcome it?
Let's see. Anything that got in my way. I guess it was more my father, honestly.
Mm,
And just I had to just go behind his back and do things and just keep powering through because I knew I wanted to get better. But other than that, I don't think there was any other kind of like conflicts that came up along the way. I mean, I ever since I was young, I'm always a hard worker, so somehow that luckily translated into my therapy.
mm,
Even though you could be an extremely hard worker in life, and still therapy could be very difficult for you. Not just It's just your brain, the way our brains are wired is a bit different when you have OCD. So it's definitely hard, but I was able to get through it. There's always hope.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I mean, I spoke to a therapist last night on the podcast where in his advice, he kind of said at the end that the clients that seem to make progress a bit quicker than others are the ones that are kind of, they've got that goal and they're fully committed no matter what to kind of do the homework, put in the work in every session and kind of go for it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, if you have that goal, you want to get from here to here, like you're it's going to help. I think it also just depends on like what level of OCD you're at. Like if
Yeah,
you're
of
just
course.
so low, like I mean, I'm also I have been since I was 20. I'm on medication as well.
Mm,
So I do take medication to help me cope with it. And I started taking medication like probably in maybe a year after I started therapy or something like that. So maybe since I was 21, which has helped. Like that really that can help like
yeah.
with your treatment because like if you're anxiety, like you're able to actually do the exposures then.
Mm,
Um, if you're so low, then it's hard to even do the exposure. So I know people have different interpretations of medicine, but I say if it works, it works. If it helps you, it
absolutely.
helps you. I don't think like you need to have a stigma on like medication not being good for you or medication being like the antichrist. I mean, I think if it helps you recover, then it's a good thing, and why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
okay, cool. So, you're an artist as well. So tell us about your artwork, which you exhibited at the ISDF conference as well this year.
Yeah, I was really excited. So it's kind of funny because I actually didn't know there was an OCD conference at all. Like I didn't know that was like an annual thing. Um, no one had told me about it. I guess I never looked it up. I had any awareness about it. But I decided about maybe like 8 months ago or so that I wanted to donate a portion of my painting sales to some kind of foundation. And that's when I started researching and looking up foundations. And I found the International OCD Foundation. And I was like, oh, whoa, like this is big. And then I reached out to them and I was like, what could we do to like partner anything? Like I'd like to donate to your foundation. And they were like, oh, well, there's a conference like happening and you could like, we're doing our first ever art gallery there. So you could exhibit. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So I was like, okay, like I'll attend the conference, be a participant, like also show my work, meet people, share my story. And so that was exciting. But yeah, so pretty much the last 6 years I've been living in Bangkok as an art teacher, but also creating a body of artwork. And so uh, art has kind of been like on the side and teaching has been in the forefront. But I'm actually switching that. I'm taking a crazy leap of faith, and once June hits, I'm actually planning on doing art full time and more
Nice.
like teaching on the side. So I have been just like reaching out to so many people and just trying to get things in place for this like big change in my life, which it will be quite uncertain. And I know I'm somehow like I'm not afraid of it. I'm excited to take the leap, and I know that I have, you know, jobs and stuff that I can fall back on. But yeah, so anyways, a little bit about my artwork specifically is I specialize in really colorful, vibrant dot paintings. The last 3 to 4 years, that's been my like primary style of art. So, and the reason I use dots in my artwork is not because it necessarily represents something, but it's about the process. Actually, creating these paintings have been like a coping mechanism for helping me with my OCD, kind of like a therapy, like an art therapy. And it's just like, it's just such a mindful practice to just be painting in this style, because you have to have a lot of focus, and there's a lot of concentration that's involved. So you have to really be paying attention to the present moment. And so instead of like, you know, getting lost in my thoughts, instead I'm embodying a painting experience and I'm getting involved in something that's really positive. And so my brain actually just like calms down, and my any kind of obsessive thought or things I need to do just sort of just like melts away. Not 100%, but like I just get so involved in the process that like nothing else really matters at that moment. And so that's been one of my coping mechanisms. And it's not like I would say that you can just use art as a treatment and only art, but I think like you can use different forms of treatment in order to get better with your OCD. And art has definitely been something that has helped me. But the paintings themselves are actually like quite beautiful to look at, super detailed. And when viewers actually look at them, it can help, like the same way I feel when I paint it can have the same response within a viewer. Like it can help with their intrusive thoughts. You can get deep into the painting. Many of my works are mandalas. So they have like a center point and coming out. And so the mandala represents the self in the universe. So it's just like, it's just really incredible. And I've been really happy with these paintings, and I'm sort of like shifting my style now, starting to create dot paintings of animals, and it's just been awesome. I'm really, really happy.
Yeah, well, no, thank you. And I'll put a link in the show notes to your website so people
Yeah,
can
that
check
would
it
be
out.
great.
And
Yeah.
yeah, what was the kind of reaction like at the conference? Did you speak to anyone?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I spoke to a lot of people. I was actually like really like I had no idea what it was going to be like. It was just interesting to me at first because it's like being around so many people who like either understand OCD or having, you know, experience OCD, or researchers, therapists. Like I just never been around such an OCD community, and it was like amazing actually. Like you could relate to people in ways that like you can't relate to other people. Like we could tell our stories and no one was going to judge us. So I think I was the most open I've ever been at that conference, especially with my artwork, because like talking to people about my story and OCD, like if someone's not really going through any kind of mental health issues, they might not be able to relate or connect. But it was just so easy to connect with people when I was at the conference. I stayed by my art. Like I went to a lot of workshops, and then some of them I didn't go to, and I actually stayed next to my art and waited for people to come around, and I just talked to them, and they shared their story, I shared mine, and like seemed like people were really impressed with my work and like really happy that I was there. And, it made me feel good. And I'm really happy I had the chance to exhibit there. And I hope I can continue doing that. And I hope that the art gallery becomes a bigger thing, because I know that this year was the first year. So there's always going to be, little things that don't go right. And so every year should get better.
All right, cool. So words of hope for those with OCD.
Words of hope. Let's see. If you're at your lowest point, and it can only go up from there. There are so many different kinds of treatments, especially ERP, that can help you. They're scientifically proven to help, and they will help. You will live with uncertainty, but everybody lives with uncertainty, and that actually is a beautiful part of life, to be able to manage that uncertainty. And there's no chance that you're going to stay the way you are. You're always going to grow and become a better version of yourself.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And then what advice or what would you tell someone who's just starting their recovery journey?
I would say, you just need to have that willpower and dedication to your goal, and working directly alongside your therapist and doing your homework and really being involved in it and prioritizing it.
Okay, so a couple different questions now. So if you could pick up the phone and call your 20-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Amy, you are going to get better. You have the support. The first thing you did is recognize that you had an issue, and then you went and you went and you got help for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because you have to recognize.
Yeah.
You have to recognize that there is something, happening with you. And I think that's the first step.
Yeah, good point. And then you've got a billboard. What do you want written on that billboard?
If I had a billboard, what would I want written on that billboard? Let's see. Like related to OCD?
It could be anything.
It could be anything. Stay positive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Empowerment, positivity.
Yeah, we can add those.
Yeah. Those are big mottos.
Cool. All right, brilliant. And is there anything else that you wish you could have said today?
I think I covered everything. I'm sure after this podcast finishes, I'll think of something, but because for now, I think so. Sure. Oh, I know. Asia.
Yeah.
And OCD.
Yeah.
Huge. That's what I was thinking about. Huge. There's a really big stigma here. And so I'm wondering, like, what are the ways to, like, I use my art as a way to destigmatize OCD, but, like, to a certain extent in Asia, like, I mean, here, like, it's really looked down upon to have any kind of mental health issue. So how to create this awareness in Asia on, like, a larger scale? I don't know, like, because, like, it's the International OCD Conference, right? But, like, I don't know where the international part really sets in so much. And I think that's something that's actually, when I was about to speak to you during the conference, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, like, how to create, like, more of an awareness abroad, especially in Asia. Because here, like, there's no support groups here. There is none. I've asked. There's nowhere where you can get like any kind of like support group and speak to people about your mental health issues, like specifically OCD. I searched everywhere. They just don't have something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the International OCD Foundation is primarily a North American-based charity,
right,
or NGO, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They do some work, and it's slowly growing, and maybe that's in their long-term mission to kind of truly be global. But and if they do that, that's awesome. But for me, there needs it. for me, change needs to come within a country more so than outside in. And outside in can be great, but for me, you know, in the words of Gandhi, be the change you want to see. And for me, someone needs to start a charity in, say, Bangkok. Someone needs to start one in India. You know, and then from there, because the people in those countries get those countries, they get the political systems, they get the stigma, they get how religion impacts on that, and then they can work with the system to train more clinicians or to decrease stigma. You know, and hopefully, if anyone out there is listening to this in those countries that want to do that, if they were to reach out to the ISDF, for example, I'm sure the ISDF would tell them everything they knew and help them set up a charity in their own country.
Right. You know, actually, it's interesting. So a little bit before I went to the conference, I decided to put my OCD story up on my website. So it's still there. And I've kind of like talked about it on social media. And there's been a lot of people who have was like, hey, Amy, like, I totally relate. Like, I have it too. I've never told anyone before. So like, I feel like I did do something good.
Absolutely.
And there are some Thai people who just said they're going through it. So maybe they'll, you know, be a voice for everyone. I hope, like, we can work together. I made a little Facebook group for people who were like involved in the OCD community within Bangkok, but I think I have like all of 5 members in it.
Hey, it's 5 more than before.
Yes, it's 5 more than before. 100% true.
Exactly. And look, it could be that one day maybe you put on a mental health focused art exhibit in Bangkok, you know, and then that's a great way of starting to tackle stigma.
True.
All these things add up until it gets to a critical point where, you know, there's less stigma anymore, no stigma, who knows. Yeah. Cool. No, but it's a good point, and I hope, you know, us having this bit of a conversation can kind of inspire the people in those countries to, you know,
that would be awesome.
I
hope you guys are listening.
Absolutely. And I get why people with, say, OCD in a stigmatized country may not want to, you know, start a charity, but, you know, a therapist who treats OCD or a therapist generally in a stigmatized country could create a charity because they have that professional kind of barrier to kind of defend them against the stigma. Right.
Totally. Yeah. That would be awesome.
Nice. Well, good point. And keep up your work anyway in Asia.
Thank
you. Because it's making a difference. So there you have it. Thanks a lot to Amy for sharing her story and to you guys for listening. And quick disclaimer, guys, this podcast is not therapy. It is not a replacement for therapy. Please seek treatment from a trained professional. Until we speak, take care.